Today, I'm in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and you may have never heard of it, but you have heard of the Corvette, one of the most recognizable cars in American history. Well, Bowling Green is where they're made. That's why there's an entire museum dedicated to Corvettes here. And today, we're going to get a look at it and at all the other stuff you should definitely consider doing the next time you find yourself nearby.
Let's take the ride. Every twist and turn, a place to hide.
Hello y'all, I'm Miss World, also known as Casey, and my goal is to show you how to travel around the world in style and on a budget. I've learned that no matter where you go, there's always somewhere to go when you're there. Every town has interesting attractions, little bits of history, and some place to eat that everyone knows is great. Bowling Green is the same way, but it has one pretty good claim to fame: the fabulous Corvette. Even if you're not a car person, and trust me, I'm not, you have to admit that the Corvette is pretty badass. Bowling Green is best known for being the home of the Corvette Museum, but I actually learned a lot more about Bowling Green while I was there, and I found out that there are actually many cool attractions here that are worth visiting. Do any of them match up to muscle cars and machinery? Well, let's talk a little bit more about the best stuff to do in Bowling Green and which thing to do here I actually like the most. Let's start with the best free stuff you can do in Bowling Green. One of my favorite spots that I discovered here was Fountain Square Park. This is right in the heart of the downtown area of Bowling Green, and it's beautiful. The downtown area here is very well maintained. It has a very nice posh bit of flair. There are balconies overlooking the streets and little boutiques inside historic buildings that have been renovated and modernized. All of the stuff you'd see in the nice section of any downtown area in any southern city, but Bowling Green's entire downtown is the pretty posh area, so it's pretty fancy, and y'all know that suits my style. For the record, Bowling Green is a little bit fancy. Some of y'all would say it's bougie. Bowling Green is actually kind of a small city, even though it is the third largest city in the state of Kentucky, and it's deep in what we call the bluegrass. Kentucky is known as the bluegrass state, and that actually is a specific type of grass. It's used quite a lot in golf courses, but more than that, it's used to feed horses. Thoroughbreds, which those of us in Kentucky consider to be the finest horses in the world, grow nice and strong on Kentucky bluegrass. The state is known for horse racing and horse breeding, and there is really big money in that. So there's a lot of big horse money in Bowling Green. There are a lot of super nice places to shop and eat and spend time here. You can find really fancy restaurants and all that stuff. Now, we're not doing that on this trip. Y'all know we're doing budget travel here. So I went to a bunch of free places in Bowling Green and ate at affordable places, and that's what we do here. But you can get a feel for that posh lifestyle in Bowling Green when you visit Fountain Square Park. I actually sat and ate lunch here, and there was a little bit of foot traffic and people going around shopping and all of that, and it was pretty nice. There were other people in the park, and it was a really nice day out, so I got to see the best of Bowling Green, and it was pretty nice. I highly recommend this as a lunch stop or a snack stop if you have some nice weather to enjoy and you find yourself in Bowling Green. Another stop on my trip was the Kentucky Museum, which you can find on the campus of Western Kentucky University. It's a free museum, and it's fairly small, but it's pretty interesting. There are some exhibits here detailing the history of Kentucky, which actually covers a pretty large amount of time. It's a very brief history of Kentucky because there aren't a lot of exhibits here, but it's all free, so I'm not mad at it. There was also a pretty interesting and rather extensive display dedicated to Duncan Hines here. Yes, as in Duncan Hines like cake mixes and stuff. This part of the museum is actually known as the Duncan Hines Museum because the display is so big. I actually did not know this, but Duncan Hines was an actual guy and he was born here in Bowling Green. This part of the museum is interesting because I've never really seen anything like it, and I'm going to talk a lot more about it in an upcoming video, so make sure you subscribe and you can find out how Duncan Hines started out on the road and became known for cake. It's a really interesting story. There's another free spot I found in Bowling Green that was actually very unexpected and super easy to miss. In fact, I almost did. But I knew this spot was here. Google Maps told me for sure it was, so I pressed on through the forest and the trees and finally discovered the narrow road leading to the Baker Arboretum and the Downing Museum, which are located on the same property and which are totally free to visit. You can come here and wander around all on your own, and it's very nice. So it's definitely worth the extra effort to find the path that leads to it and to drive up through the trees to discover this little hidden world waiting for you on the other side. I was actually kind of blown away by this property. It was really surprising to find all this hidden away where you really have to know about it in order to find it, and that's why I always say you should research wherever you're going to find little stuff like this. And if you don't want to do the research, I'll do it for you. Just subscribe to my channel and I'll tell you where you should go to have a great time. It was actually a private residence in the 1990s, owned by a man who loved to garden. It really shows. The Arboretum is absolutely incredible, full of fountains and stones and beautiful plants. The plants come from all over the country, but there are also many native Kentucky plants here as well. He even used his property to build himself a museum. It's filled with the works of Joseph Dudley Downing, who had a very distinct artistic style. I'm not the biggest fan of modern art in the world, so honestly, his pieces were not my thing. But it's a free museum, and I can assure you the artworks are very unique. I mean, you've never seen anything quite like them. As long as you're there when the property and museum are open, you can walk around freely. Take photographs, take video, just explore it all and see it for free. It's exactly the kind of attraction I like, and I definitely recommend this if you happen to find yourself in Bowling Green. There are some cool free things to do here, but if you spend some money, there are some other interesting attractions you can take a look at. First up is the Lost River Cave. Kentucky is very well known for its caves. Less than an hour away from Bowling Green is a place called Cave City. This is where you can find Mammoth Cave and just about every type of cave attraction you can imagine. Mammoth Cave is the largest system of caves in the world, but there are actually caves everywhere under Kentucky. There's actually another huge one right under my home city of Louisville, and there are some under Bowling Green as well. I'm actually going to have to talk about that again later, so just know for now that there are caves all over Kentucky. It's the limestone. So you can go to this place called Lost River Cave in Bowling Green. This is the longest underwater river in the world, but actually it's really not that long at all. The entire ride takes about 20 minutes or so. You'll spend more time waiting for the ride to begin than actually being on it. But it is interesting and it is entertaining. The guides do a good job of talking about the river and the cave and showing you everything, and it's nice. There's also an entire outside tour where you'll hear some funny stories and learn more about the history here, which involves moonshine and prohibition and all sorts of fun stuff. But at $24 per person, it's really a skippable attraction. It's fun to see the underwater river, but you're actually in a really big boat with a whole lot of other people, and that's not always a great situation. It wasn't for me, so maybe my experience was a little tainted, but that's why you're rolling the dice when you do an attraction where you get on a thing with a lot of strangers, because who else is on the thing with you, right? And for the price, there really isn't all that much going on. If you're into hiking, though, this is a really amazing area to hike, and there are a bunch of trails to explore, and all that's free, so you might be into that. A surprising hidden gem I discovered here was the South Union Shaker Village, which I was actually excited to see. This was on my original itinerary for Bowling Green, but I thought the cave was going to take longer than it did, so I ended up with a little extra time, and I was very happy to get to go to Shaker Village after all. It was actually kind of a lot. Very unusual and very interested. But I'm not going to lie, things start off super weird. So when you go to Shaker Village, which by the way is a full village with multiple buildings, and after you pay your $10 admission fee, which is actually quite reasonable, they put you in this weird room. It's quite plain with wooden benches and like a big screen, okay? So I'm like, okay, well, this is it. I'm about to either be indoctrinated into a cult and end up living in this village or somehow get brainwashed into performing some kind of criminal act. And I really did want to just take off because I've seen movies and I know how this all ends. But I sat there, and it was actually just like a little clip from PBS about the village, which was once a functioning religious community where a bunch of people lived and built buildings and stuff. but obviously at some point I'm going to get activated. After that, they let me out of the weird room, which honestly felt like the religious community's punishment room or something. I was actually free to go explore the buildings all over the village any old way I wanted. You can walk all around and go inside and get a look at everything. And actually, I really did like it. So, the official name of this movement is the United Society of Believers in Christ's Second Appearance, according to Encyclopedia Britannica. And during the 1700s in the United States, they established a lot of communities like the one in Bowling Green. The tenets of the community are celibacy, work, and simplicity. And they were self sufficient. The Shakers built their own buildings and even made their own furniture, which became known as Shaker style. It's very simplistic with clean lines, and it actually doesn't look so bad. Shaker style furniture is all over the Shaker Village in Bowling Green. And so are brooms. There are a ton of brooms hanging on the walls of pretty much all of the buildings. They have these pegs on the walls, and there are brooms. I actually thought the pegs were a really good storage solution, and I'm thinking of ways to incorporate that into my own home. But the point is, it's actually a cool attraction. They had different buildings for all the different tasks that would be performed here, such as prepping animals for cooking and sewing clothes and pretty much anything a community would need. Bowling Green South Union Shaker Village had 75 buildings in the 1830s. By 1922, the village had disbanded after creating 225 buildings here. Most of those are now gone, but the remaining buildings are beautifully preserved. They include the center house, the main dormitory, the ministry where the elders lived, the smokehouse and the milk house, the wash house, the grain barn, the steam house, and the post office. It's a huge property, so you may actually want to get in the car and drive around. Either way, you really can't beat it for $10 a person. You can hang out as long as you want, see what you want, and it's really not bad. It's a bit of a hidden treasure in Bowling Green, and I do recommend it. But of course, the main attraction of Bowling Green is always going to be the Corvette Museum. This is the main feature of Bowling Green, and the city is famous for it. You may or may not remember when Bowling Green made national news because an enormous sinkhole opened up right underneath the museum. Remember how we talked about there being a lot of caves under Kentucky? So this one collapsed in 2014 and a whole bunch of really expensive cars fell into this huge sinkhole. I've seen the footage and it's like wild. The floor just collapses all at once and the cars fall down and it was a really big deal. But the museum has recovered, and today the sinkhole is literally part of the exhibit. The museum is a definite must if you're a car person, and it's something cool to see even if you aren't, which I'm not. Tickets are $25 per person, but I'm going to show you the entire museum for free in my next video. So hit subscribe now and come back next week and you can get a look at the entire thing with me because honestly, I kind of feel like the ticket price is a little high. This is the most famous part of Bowling Green, and it is a great museum. But at those prices, I have thoughts. All in all, I had an amazing time in Bowling Green, and I'm going to be breaking down the rest of my trip, including where you can find all the most amazing food here. So come back to the channel for more. Thank you for watching, and thank you for taking the journey with me. Now, Voyager, sail forth to seek and find.